looking at the video today about Jordan Peterson and Rex, and they were talking about Trudeau and what Trudeau was doing, and how he was making decisions that were poor this year for spending the way he was spending money, the way he was dealing with the truckers, the way he was like seen by other members of the UN, etc.
Well, if we're kind of talking about what just happened in the Parliament in the European Union, it certainly sounds like we've got a problem on our hands. When you have the leader of a country that's more or less being called out as a dictator, this is the Canadian Prime Minister. I don't even fathom that. I think it's kind of a wild accusation, one to claim from the EU, but is it wrong? I don't know if it's wrong. He seems like he fits the bill. So it's been an interesting process to say the least. What's Canada doing? What are we doing right now? I find that it's a very odd time, an odd scenario to be looking at Canada as a nation and seeing what our leadership's doing. And I rightly what you're saying there about the article that we were talking about, Jordan Peterson, interesting guy. Rex Murphy, I think if you were to ask, the average Canadian over the last 20 years, pretty straight shooter. Not a guy that comes out with salacious commentary just for the point of doing it. So interesting to say the least that these gentlemen have stood up and kind of took a stand against that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Like, both of them are highly intelligent, and if you get the chance to watch it, I would. They're both highly intelligent and thoughtful, and they know their stuff. It's not like they're just talking like we are, where we don't know as much as they do. But well, you do maybe. But I agree with you. Like, I think Trudeau's making a lot of mistakes right now. Like, he's just like, for Canada, I don't know that Canada's ever been called out in the way it's been called out lately. Like,
right.
And I don't know that I disagree. Like, he's made a lot of choices that have limited rights and stopped people from having a voice, and whether you agree with the truckers or not, and that is not even in question. It doesn't matter to me. What the problem is that you silenced a group of people who are Canadians. Not only are the Canadians, they're hardworking Canadians. They were celebrated last year because they kept working when everyone else was hiding. All the people I saw at the protests, and I wasn't there, so what the hell do I know? But all the stuff that I saw, they were loving and caring. They were feeding people. They were helping people. Sure, in every protest, there's bad people. I get that. I've been in protests myself where there's people there that I wish weren't. But I think the core of the people that showed up were good, honest, hardworking people. And for a prime minister not to take the moment to go out and say, hey, I know you guys are hurting. Let's have a conversation. How hard is it to have a fucking conversation? How hard is it to have a conversation when, these are your people. These are your Canadians. Right. It doesn't matter what group. He went out and he talked to Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Why? He's gone out to talk to Natives. He's gone out to talk to all these groups that disagree with him. Why all of a sudden do you have to cause division in such a way that you're going to call a group of Canadians, hardworking Canadians that are just trying to feed their families, terrorists?
Right.
That was sick.
Yeah, fringe minority. And I think you're right, James. I think it doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum. That's problematic. Whatever nation in the world, if you have a group of people that are standing there and are arguing and saying, no, we disagree with the leadership that we're seeing right now, you should be able to have that discussion. I think where we've lost a little bit over the last 5 or 6 years is political discourse and the ability to have a dialogue. I hate to say it, but here we are as cartoons today, but we're talking about some really serious things that a couple weeks ago would have been considered hateful. This was hate speech, that we were saying that the truckers have a right to free speech and right to freedoms. That's wild to me. That's wildly wrong. And I think that we've lost that political discourse within our society. And if we're not careful, it will never return. You brought up some organizations there that Trudeau was willing to have conversations with, and those seem very politically driven. This here would seem to be much more cover your butt, CYA, cover your ass. When it came to Trudeau, he had a number of people. He had thousands and thousands and thousands of people at his doorstep that were not very pleased with what he had been putting together. The issue is, what do you do about it? He didn't have to do anything. He just stood back and watched. And unfortunately, the media that we have in Canada at the time portrayed them as Nazis, as terrorists, as fringe minorities, and a ton of people. You've probably had people in your own life where you have these conversations with them. They bought it. They believed that these people were terrorists, that they were going to burn down Parliament. This was Guy Fawkes Day all over again, and it couldn't have been anything further from the truth. And as a Canadian, I went and saw it. I personally went and saw it. I took my family down to see it, and it was nothing what was being described. And that's, as a Canadian, I'm pretty proud of going and doing that. However, far fetched from burning the cities down and looting and rioting like some of the other issues that have been happening. So, uh, politically, I think Trudeau will live to fight another day. I think the issue here that we have to be concerned about is what is the discourse in Canada. If we cannot have fair and ethical and moral debates about politics, we're behind the eight ball way farther than we've ever expected.
I completely agree. If we can't have discourse in a calm, conversational way where we have two sides that completely disagree and they just want to have a conversation, whether it's about transgender or Black Lives Matter or the truckers thing, you should be able to sit and have a calm conversation about it. You and I disagree all the time, and we're still able to be friends at the end of the day and have a whiskey.
That's right,
But it
because I'm
just
always
seems
right.
you're not wrong. But it seems like when I'm out in the community and I'm out, like I was at a party last night and they started talking about the truckers. Um, and I had a opposing opinion because I believe in freedom of speech.
Right.
Like, but they couldn't get over the fact that the leaders were somehow Nazis of some kind. Like, I don't know the leaders. I don't follow the leaders. I don't care about the leaders.
No.
And that's what I was trying to explain to him. I don't care what your opinion is. I care the fact that we have to have a voice. We have
Yep.
to have these dialogues that make change. We have to have a dialogue that shows both sides so we can come together at agreement. Like Canada to me has been like a melting pot of freedom and love and religion and everything. And it just seems that the more and more, and I really think it's the smaller groups that are driving this, the more and more people want to be noticed, the more and more they want us to stop having freedom of speech where we can't, say certain things because they're off color.
Right.
Because well, we're white man. You can't, you can't have a conversation about that because you don't understand it. But, like I'm not a Coca-Cola, but I can have a conversation about Coca-Cola.
Right.
I don't know about farming, but why can't I have a conversation about farming? Why can't we just have like if someone was in here who wasn't a Catholic, you and I are
Yep.
both strong Catholics, I have no problem having a conversation with them about theology. I think that I enjoy that. I want to know where they're coming from. If you're a Buddhist or whatever, you have a point of view and I want to hear it. It doesn't
Right.
matter if I agree with you or disagree with you. We'll get heated. We might even get up and start getting angry with each other about over, little key points. But
Yep.
at the end of the day, we're going to have a whiskey together. That's what it has to be. It has to be beautiful like that. And for
Yep.
our prime minister, the leader of the country, the guy that goes out and represents me every day, to cause discourse and hate on a very personal level. Like I couldn't imagine if I was told that I was a terrorist
Right.
in my own country.
Right. And these
And
people are what they're doing. They believe that they're standing up for their country, that they
that's right.
believe that it's a patriotic act. And then you have, Justin, uh,
Justin.
Mr. Trudeau,
Yeah.
stand up there and call you out as a fringe minority. Well, your paycheck has been taken away from you. Your property has been stripped during COVID, and COVID is another thing, right? It's amazing how all of a sudden COVID is gone. Uh, However, politically you want to align yourself with that one.
Yep.
I don't think the truckers did us a disservice. I think they went out and they solved some problems for us, whether you like them or not. We're in a position now where we have some exercised freedoms because people went and said, no, no more. So I think Justin Trudeau, I think, has worn his welcome out. We've spent more money in the country of Canada budgetarily over COVID than we should have ever. It's insane. And I look at it now that we're roughly approximate, the numbers that I've been hearing is a balanced budget, balanced fiscal budget by 2070. 2070. My daughter will be almost uh, 80 years old. That, what are we doing for our kids? And I think that this is a first generation that our parents went through the war. They went through hard times. They went through conflict and strife. They lived on the recovery of that. So they had opportunities, they had jobs, they had production, they had manufacturing, they had legitimate GDP, gross domestic product. And as we go through this podcast, some of the things that I like to bring up is some of the financial stuff. I love doing that and kind of tying politics to the real world and what that looks like. But we're going through a time in Canada right now, and the world in general, where we've overspent. We've overspent our allotment, and we're going to go through some pain unless we can figure out a way to continue this. So that's what I worry about with Justin right now. Is I think he believes that the money printer will just keep burring, that they will just be able to print money, and that somehow he will be saved by that. But I think he's leveraging the future of our children for a position and a situation right now that didn't need to be handled the way that it was. Restricted freedoms of speech, restricted mobility, and I hate to say it, I'm a little bit concerned that we elected him again. We've got what looks to be 3 more years of this, 4 more years of this, and especially with the NDP that just sidled on. And that's a whole other thing. I'll leave you liberals to your perspectives on that. But
Yeah. Well, so I am very liberal, and you know that, but I'm old school liberal. I'm the liberal that believes in freedom of rights and freedom of speech and stuff like that. And you mentioned COVID, and you and I have disagreed on COVID for a lot. Like, I think COVID is a real thing, and it was a
I don't disagree
legitimate.
that COVID's a real thing.
I
I
think it
just
was
think
a
that how we've
legitimate
handled it.
thing in the beginning, the first year when
Right.
people were in the hospital, they were on respirators and stuff like that. That was a scary thing, and we needed to deal with that quickly. But I don't think Justin did. Justin would come out every day, and he'd come out and he'd go, "Okay, people, calm down. Everything's going to be okay. We have a lot of plans. We have a lot of plans."
Yeah.
And
I
then
think
that's
I think
it.
I think
That's
the
all he
biggest
did.
problem. I think the biggest problem was that Justin emerged from the cottage like the groundhog for Groundhog Day. He came out and all of a sudden his hair just kept longer, getting longer, getting longer, and you're like, oh, okay, so at least he's not getting a haircut. I guess we can feel good about that, right? But no, when all of a sudden you decide that you're going to print billions and billions of dollars, leveraging our future for something that, and yes, there's no question that people died, people got sick, and I hate to say this, and this sounds harsh, but people die every day. It's a terrible thing. COVID, COVID was an awful thing that hit the world, but the mishandling of it, the media mishandling of it, the inability to create a concise uh, voice across the world, let alone in Canada or local communities to manage this. It was so poorly done, and that's why you had these lack of a better term, insurrections that we had rise up. People were done. People were sick of it, and there was no education. I've said to you before when we've had these conversations is that the government's role in this, if they want to convince their people that they need to be a part of something to help with the COVID, right? I go back to World War II. I go back to any other conflicts or wars. It was rally behind the troops and buy bonds and support your country and all that sort of thing, right? Uh, they couldn't get the media to instead of fear mongering, they couldn't get the media in Canada that they pay millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars a year to get a standardized message across. There was no standard message. There was no information. They threw mud at the wall and hoped that it stuck. And that's where I think a lot of people, COVID is real. There's no question that COVID isn't real. But I think a lot of people were very concerned with the mismanagement and mishandling of and allocation of programming and funds. I think that's where the biggest problem stems from. And that's where people died from. We didn't have the appropriate processes in place. We didn't have the right plans in place. We didn't have the right funding in place. What's next? And to me, it's been a massive power grab. And to say that it wasn't now is pretty hard to say because we've shown that.
Oh, I
So
have to completely agree. All the governments across the world, especially Canada, has used this atrocity to grab power, whether it was the Emergencies Act or just deciding that everyone had to, like, removing choice whether or not you wear a mask, or removing choice whether you can where you have to have a vaccine to go to your job.
Right.
Uh, and the mismanagement of money, like, because it was wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wash your groceries, don't wash your groceries.
Could
It's
you
a
imagine?
airborne virus.
We went from wash your groceries to truckers no COVID.
Right.
Do you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Like
Yeah.
that's the craziness to me, is that where we
Yeah.
went from this is that when this first launched, this was Ebola. This was your eyes are going to melt out of your face. That was bullshit. They knew that was bullshit. Wash your groceries? Like, and the problem that I see coming back is that everyone's like, oh, well, they didn't know what it was. Yeah, no. They knew that it was a coronavirus. They knew that it was a human coronavirus. This is literally based, and there's multiple strains of it, more viral than others, different terms for them, but this is literally a form of the common cold. So to say that they didn't, that you have to wash your groceries, scrub your groceries, bleach shit, it was bullshit from the starts, and it was fear mongering. And you know, I'm sure over these podcasts we're gonna have lots of moments where I put a little tin cap on here, but to me, this was much more about a power grab. This was about an election that needed to be meandered and put into a proper light. And I think a lot of that comes down to the United States election with Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his policies or not, Donald Trump would have probably won the next election if COVID hadn't occurred. And that's a pretty scary thing.
Well, I don't have the tinfoil hat. You do, and we have that conversation all the time. Uh, I don't know. You might be right, like, because there were a lot of people who supported Donald Trump up until COVID, and then COVID kind of, because he didn't know how to handle it either, and I don't think he managed it well. I don't think he made the right decisions on what to do with COVID. He didn't come with a clear, concise message. To be honest, I am a hard, staunch liberal. I would never have voted for Trudeau, and I didn't because I didn't like him. He's a playboy that has no knowledge, no experience in the job, and
What's wrong with Playboys?
I don't have any experience, and I'm not saying that I would be good as a prime minister, but I want someone who has come up through the ranks, someone who has learned how to lead. He's not a leader. He's a guy that follows. He has no concept, like, from the stuff that he's worn, and like the costumes he's worn, the
Not being
decisions he's
Fidel
made.
Castro's son? Does that not set
Not
him up
being
for
Fidel Castro's son.
dictatorship? How does this work?
Exactly.
Have
Yeah.
you seen this? Have you seen any of this that I'm talking about?
I have seen that. Yeah. I'm not
Right.
sure I believe it.
No. I'm just saying, again, put
your
the cat on,
tinfoil
the
hat.
cap on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
it's somewhat of an eerie resemblance when you look at the a picture of Justin Trudeau and the late dictator of Cuba, Fidel Castro, and you put those side by side. It's very odd. And going back historically, and this is what it is, and it was a different time back then. But his mother, she was a bit of a rock star, right? Pierre was a rock star, but when you put Pierre, lovely looking man, and then you put Justin, not a lot of look there. So it's a very odd thing, and there is evidentiary proof that Margaret and Fidel were in and of around the time of the birth of Justin, that they were together in situations. So again, a little tinfoil
it could
cap.
happen. Sure. Like, I'm not
The
saying
pictures
that it
are
couldn't happen.
outstanding.
The
Again, I
pictures-
don't know, but
So,
it's
like,
wild.
looking at the pictures, the unedited pictures, because there are a lot of edited pictures that are like make it look like very similar. They have similar cheekbones and similar, but people would say that you and I are similar, and we are not family at all. Like,
Well, so
right now, we
I
look
would
pretty close.
I would say the biggest critique on the look of Fidel and Justin is the communist flags in their office.
Right. And the fact that he loves China. Let's get that. Like, what Canadian prime minister, a Canadian prime minister, a leader of democracy, comes out and says, I love China and what they do because they can make things happen. Yeah, they're dictators that can, like, wipe it, make people disappear.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, I think that goes a lot to and I'll say this: the more liberal leaning tends to have a little bit more of a soft spot for socialism. Socialism is this gateway that socialism isn't an end all. Socialism has to pivot at some point into something as a political ideology. You can't just get to socialism and be like, great, we're here now. You lead yourself down a farther and farther and farther path until there is no more money, right? When there's no more money, the government just controls everything, and then you are at communism. That is the political ideology. And at some point, Justin Trudeau, who is that liberal, modern day liberal, and I do agree that you are an older style liberal. You are more of a Jean Chrétien Canadian liberal. You would be more of you're more of a Bill Clinton. You want to play the sax. That's a little bit more like your type liberalism, and I can appreciate that. The issue is that Justin Trudeau isn't that, and he's kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing. So the modern day safety nets that he praises that we have in Canada, uh, they're safety nets until they're not. When there's no more money to take from people, and we're going through a process right now, and man, I can't wait until we get into this farther and I'm able to do some of the finance side of this, and we can figure out some of the tech. That's kind of our process right now that we're doing, right? And what do you think? What do you think of the environment here that
It's
we've
pretty
got going on?
beautiful. Like we
Yeah,
got, I shipped in the water, and we have
yeah,
our little sign there. Yeah, yeah.
right.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. But as we're able to do this is to go through and look at inflation and where we're seeing inflation rising. That's a direct tax on people. When you have a $10 item, and it goes to $11, that's a 10% inflation. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that no problem whatsoever right now. We're seeing that rise. Go to the grocery store, check it out, see what you can buy for yourself. So as that inflation comes up, you're also going to have taxation come off of that. So that 13% that you're paying is now 13%. It was at $10. Now it's at $11. That's a government stimulus to pay back the debt. Okay. Well, the problem is that becomes an additional tax on people. That's an additional tax on families. Well, are we seeing jobs increase their rate? Like, is the average income in Canada, has it gone up 10% this year? I don't think it has. So where do we go from here? Is that why we're seeing the Liberal government run these deficits the way that they're doing? That's scary because that's telling me that the more and more and more that we're going to weigh on the taxation of Canadians, there comes a point where you run out of people to tax. What do you do then? And that's where I think you need to have. We go through these cycles where you have conservatism and liberalism. And I think one of the gentlemen that I see in the Conservative Party coming up is Pierre Poilievre. And I see him as he seems to be. I'm waiting to see how tough he really is, but he seems pretty tough in his comments and speeches. And you've even yourself said that he seems like he's got the right idea and the right embodiment for what Canada needs now, because we need to rein this in, and that's going to be a long, drawn-out process, unfortunately, and painful. Painful. I would hate to see a young generation that's trying to buy a house right now. You've got kids that are in that age group.
Yeah. Like I have two kids, and they're both doing very well, and like exceedingly well, above average for someone their age, and making. They're just launching their lives. They're going to be making a lot of money. Neither one of them will be able to buy a house without my support, without some
Right.
sort of down payment, without some sort of help. They might even need me to co-sign. That's ridiculous. Like when I was
Right.
their age, I just walked out. All I needed was $10,000 and a plan, and I walked out, and they said, "For sure, we'll give you a house." But
Yep.
now, like people are price war over a house, and like all these people have to rent, and
Yep.
when the rents are so high, how do you build a nest egg? You can't.
Right.
It's
Absolutely. Well.
unbelievable. And then you got food on top of it that's going up, that like
Yep.
meat is like doubled in price almost. So I totally agree. Like I agree with you. Like, so you and I are different. You don't so much believe in the social programs and medical for all and all that stuff.
Charity starts
You're
at
more,
home.
you're exactly. You're more the business side. I believe that there are people who need welfare. There are people who need unemployment. There were even people who needed CERB. My problem was everyone didn't need CERB. There were people that I know that quit their job because CERB would make them more money. There were people that I know that weren't working at all, that got on CERB. This is ridiculous. If
Right.
you're not contributing to society already, what do you need CERB for?
Right.
You don't deserve CERB. You haven't contributed anything to our world. There's
Right.
welfare for you. There's other things for you. The fact that we were just handing out CERB to anyone, to everyone, to people that had jobs. I know people that were working, painting, building houses, and collecting CERB. Like,
Yeah.
we should have been more fiscally responsible with this money that we were handing out. Because I agree with you. My kids, like, it's not. It'll affect you and I a little bit because of what we make, and tax season is going to change drastically for you and I coming up here soon. But
Yep.
our kids, they're not going to have. There's going to be no social programs. How are you going to have social programs when there's no next nest egg? Like,
Right.
look at Greece. Greece fell down
Right.
because of that. They just
Well,
kept on giving and giving and giving and giving and giving it, and at no point thought, well, the pot's empty. Maybe we should start not thinking about that and start finding ways to make the pot bigger. And you're right. I am with you on the fact that that gentleman you were talking about is an interesting individual. My problem is I don't know what his stance are on the liberal sides of things, like freedom of speech and gay rights and trans rights and stuff like that. I feel there's a place for that, and I'm not so sure that he does. So I'm waiting to see what he thinks about that kind of stuff. Right now, there's not a liberal leader that I trust or even think I could trust. So hopefully that changes soon. If Justin Trudeau comes back in again, it will be it'll be just terrible for Canada. Like, it'll just
I don't
be.
think you'll see it. I think that even the people that voted for him last time, I hate to say this, but COVID got serious when they said about the children, when mothers, and it's a voter base that I think that was drastically underestimated. When mothers were told that they needed to inoculate their babies, it's amazing how COVID went away within 3 months because they said no. You're not doing it. There was nobody that I knew that when the children went from the 12 to 18, they hemmed and hawed and they didn't like the idea. But okay, when it went from the babies to 12, eight, I think it was 7 or 8 to 12. That was the next cohort they were doing. That was it. Absolutely not. They would not stand for it. They did not stand for it. And it's odd that if you look back on the timeline of that, that was right around November, December. COVID was all but done the end of January because they got so much pushback. There's absolutely no way I'm going to inoculate my baby. We don't know the long-term ramifications of this. We're not doing it. And when the mother stood up and said, absolutely not, we don't hear about it anymore. The numbers fell off the radar. We're not have CNN flashing body counts and case counts, and well, that's all fear. That's all fear mongering. That was taking people and forcing them into an ideological confine of their home, of their own mind. And that to me is so problematic, but we did it willingly. And then now we pivot into the Ukraine. We pivot into the next war. We pivot into the next fear drum. Boom, 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 boom. And that's what I'm concerned about is that we just are on this fear roller coaster that it's almost like we're addicted to it. We have this methodology and addiction in our society that we need the next clickbait. And yes, we will be clickbaiting. That's that's what
That's what we're hoping to do here.
as we're a little bit of media.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing as a society is we're taking this and it's attention grabbing every day. If it bleeds, it leads. Let's go blow up stuff in the Ukraine and that show that. Well, the body count stopped over here. What's the body count over here? That's sick. That's sick. And we've got to pull off of that. We've got to figure out ways as a society to come back to a social discourse where we can talk, where we can communicate, where it's not ideologically opposing and violent. And violent. I look at the United States and I say they are one powder keg away from massive, massive civil war. Like it doesn't feel like it's getting any softer. And we've got midterm elections coming up down there. Midterm elections, that's a pretty good time for stuff. You got a war in the Ukraine. You start sending over boys and girls over to Ukraine to fight another foreign war. I don't know. What's that look like? That'll be
I know I wouldn't want to send my children to go fight a foreign war on a soil that I don't understand the politics. I don't understand what is going on. But you touched on some interesting points back when you were talking about once we started rolling out the vaccines and we were saying everyone get it, the government decided to stop the body count. We're going to turn that off. So wouldn't you want the body count once the vaccines are rolling so we can see, we can judge, is it working? But no, we're going to shut it off so no one knows if the vaccines are working. We're just going to shut it off so you don't know. We're going to stop talking about it. We're going to change it, flip it. And our news media, we could do a whole show on news media. You're absolutely right. It is they constantly because we're on a 24-hour news cycle. They're
right.
constantly looking for content. They're constantly making up content. They're constantly going like in every protest and every story, they seek out the craziest, nuttiest person that they can interview. There's all kinds of people that they could interview that are intelligent, have thoughts, but no, they want that crazy person. So then they can wheel off that and have an hour conversation about how whoever they're talking about is nuts and that they have these weird ideas, that they have tinfoil hats, and
Right.
or that
And
that there's
both do it.
killings going on. Oh, both
Yeah,
do it. Yeah,
whether it be
absolutely.
CNN over here showing, a crazy guy with no teeth and a Trump hat, or you got Fox News over here that's got the purple haired tattoo, earring in everything, crazy person. And then somewhere in the middle, the rest of the world's supposed to be.
That's
And
right.
we're
Because
being diametrically opposed with our ideologies and pulled, and it's very puppety. And when I do the hands, it actually works.
well, it's very interesting because there's a lot of philosophies that are, um, if you create conflict in a group,
Yep,
then you can control that group. The more
100%.
conflict there's in the group, the more inner fighting. If you and I are fighting, and
Yep,
someone comes in and we're distracted because I hate you,
right.
and they direct me to do something, well, I'm concentrating on you. Okay, I'll go do that. And then you go do it, and you're led by that because you don't have to, you don't think about other things. You don't think about that you don't have food on the table. You don't think about that your job isn't great. You just go back to the grind and you do it because you know what? He's taking care of it. There's a lot of strife in the world. Everyone's suffering. Everyone's hurting. I'm just one of the people that's hurting. Like everyone's doing it. They're all fighting. Like whether it's like a race war or whether it's with the natives, like just before not too long ago, they came out with all the terrible terrible children that died in the native reserves, the schools.
Yep.
Um, I haven't heard anything about it. I thought we were going to go look into that. I thought we were
The
going to find
election's
out,
over.
but no, we were supposed to look into it. We were going to go check. We were going to find out why they died. What was the reasoning?
Oh, yeah, but the
And now
election's
it's
over.
now it's gone. Like
Right.
that's what we were all supposed to be upset about and fighting about a little while
Right.
ago.
Well,
And
because
then they
that's liberalism, and I, you and I have had these discussions, and we will continue to. But liberalism is a beautiful thought of emotion, right? It's that while, like, you're talking about the gay rights, the trans rights, all these sorts of things, we have the Charter of Rights that protects all of that. Whether you're gay, whether you're trans, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're green, whether you're blue, whether you're whatever, that charter protects. And if it doesn't, bring a case and you will win it. So what we're trying to say is that when we had, I don't think anybody agreed that nobody had heard about the residential schools in Canada. Like, you knew about residential schools long before the election.
absolutely,
I don't
absolutely.
think I don't think anybody didn't. But what we did is we started beating the drum. Okay, and I'm using that as a fictitious, but also quite literally, we were beating the drum in preparation for the Liberal election. And it's amazing how the Liberals were able to gather enough funding to start looking into this, and we're going to put money into this, and we're going to solve this problem in the largest growing voter demographic in Canada. I don't think a lot of people know that. I don't think a lot of people know that the Native community in Canada is the fastest growing minority voter demographic in Canada. It's our Black Lives Matter. It is our organization. It is our racial hot button issue. It is our racial shame. We didn't have slavery the same way that the United States did. And unfortunately, I think that was a hot button topic that was used in our election. Because once the election was over, nobody cared. And I hate to say this, but we'll likely go back to it in 4 years.
Oh, I completely agree. Like, so the first election when Trudeau came in, it was about women's rights. and they brought up the natives
Missing and
again,
murdered, right? Missing and murdered.
natives,
Yep.
and we're going to solve this. We're going to have all these big talks with them. We're going to, smoke the peace pipe and sit down and really meet and try to make solutions. And that started happening, and then the election, and then he won, and then women's rights went to the side, and he stepped
Well,
on
hang
women's
on,
rights several
hang on,
times.
James. It was 2015. We balanced the cabinet. We
Yeah.
had 2015, so we had equal gender in 2015 in the cabinet. Did that work? Did we feel like Canada made big steps from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019? Was that a beneficial thing for Canada? I would argue that the people, Jody Wilson-Raybould, I imagine that she probably thinks that she was probably a pretty good MP. When she poked her head up and said, no, Mr. Trudeau, you aren't doing what you should be doing. And I think what you were doing with the, what was the
Lavallee.
SNC Lavalin?
Yeah.
No, you just sweep that under the table because they're good donors. I have a funny feeling that she didn't feel very gender enthused and treated very fairly about that. But no, we'll just sweep that away. Justin Trudeau is the biggest fraud as a prime minister that Canada has ever had. And he continues to. The only reason that he's able to do what he's done is that he comes from a long line of family that has been in politics. If you go back to his father or his father. And it's
absolutely, he is Canada royalty. He's no different than the Kennedys, and that's
right.
why he won. He won because he's beautiful, and because
tell me again, he's sorry.
He's beautiful. He's beautiful. You got to
admit
admit
pretty cute, man.
You like him, not as
That's
cute as you, but
Ah,
he's
I
beautiful.
appreciate
But that's what he won. Like when he first came out and said he was running for election, in the media, it wasn't about policy. It wasn't about political change. It wasn't about strife. It wasn't about what we were going to do. It was about, he's gorgeous. Oh, look, he's with this girl, or he did this dance, or he did this, or he was on People magazine or something as the most beautiful man in the world.
Right.
It had nothing to do with politics, and that is terrifying. He had a whole media group behind him pushing his looks and the fact that he was a Trudeau. And the fact that his father did good things, the fact that, so my dad knew how to fix cars. Right. I held a flashlight, I can't even tell, countless hours. I held it wrong, but I held it for countless hours for him. I can't fix a car. I have no idea. I stood beside him and watched him. I heard him talk to mechanics all the time about complicated transmissions and stuff like that. I have no idea how to do it. I couldn't pick up a wrench and fix it. So to think that just because Trudeau as a kid grew up in politics around other leaders, listened to his dad talk, to think that he could actually be a leader is ridiculous. And the only thing he had on his resume was that he was good-looking playboy. And I can't remember how many women were on the news and in videos, YouTube, talking about how beautiful he was, and they can't wait to, I'm free. Yeah. But not about any politics. No. It was ridiculous that we would elect a playboy as our Canadian prime minister just because he was good looking. And that is terrifying. When do we get back to the fact that we talk about politics when we run? When do we get the fact that we talk about real issues, not hot button issues like racism or those are important. Don't get me wrong. But what's important to me is, how are you going to make people have jobs? How are you going to make people have food on their table? How are you going to pay for these social programs that you want to have? I'm a firm believer in social programs, but I also am a firm believer in we have to pay for them. And right now we can't. I hate
to say this, man. You are a conservative. You just don't know it yet.
I am an old school liberal.
I'm telling you, man. Those are not new age liberal policies. What you're talking about there is liberal tax and spend is not what today's liberal is. Like you're saying, the social policies and the social programs that you just described, it's militant in the liberal wing right now. We saw it with the truckers. It's militant. And I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how we pull back. I guess, that's what we're here to do, is we're going to solve the problems of the world with having this podcast and have these conversations and talk a little bit about what we're doing here and what our plans are with the podcast. What do you think? Where do you want to see this go?
So what you and I have discussed is that we just want to talk about current issues, future issues, talk about like important issues like how to get a mortgage, or if you are interested in the market. Like, we're not saying we're experts. We're definitely not experts in any of these fields, but we
Right.
do have knowledge. We do have experience. We have Googled things, and we want to share that. We think that when we have a conversation that it's interesting, people might be able to get content from it. We're hoping that viewership gives us ideas themselves. Maybe they want to hear about a certain topic, and then we can move forward with it.
Right.
But I think we're trying to blend this new technology, the metaverse, which is like, it just blows my mind every time I walk into it. The
Kind of
things that
cool.
we're able to do
Yep.
with this old school podcast idea,
Right.
so we can have conversations that we want to have, that we think are important, that we
Yep.
think will change lives, that we think that we can bring to the table discussions that we used to have as a family, which doesn't happen anymore. You used to be able to sit at a table with your family and have a conversation about the newspaper article that was real, not just like, I want hate. You could sit down, you could have a conversation, you'd argue with your dad about, like policies or politics, because you're the young guy, he's the old guy. And at the end, you loved each other, you gave each other a high five and whatever, and you moved on.
Right.
Or you'd go to the bar and you meet with a group of friends, or you meet a new person, you have a great conversation about topics that are just topics. Like,
Right.
I don't know why we've gotten so angry about it. And I think that's what this is about. This is about, yeah, we're going to talk about things that, you guys don't want us to talk about, that you guys maybe feel we shouldn't talk about it. But I am tired of not having a voice. We are going to have a voice. And if you want to watch it. We're not forcing you to watch it. But come on in. And if you want to have a conversation, we have a way to get you in here over here. We'll bring you in. We'd be happy to, as long as you have a voice and you have an opinion opposite of ours or the
Yep.
same as ours. Like, you and I don't agree lots of times. But that's what I think this is. What about you? What are you thinking?
No, I agree. I think what we want to do is, I think that for myself, the big topics that I want to touch on are kind of what we hit today. When we started this off today, we kind of focused on Trudeau and where he is, and that was something that's kind of recently up in the news just because of what's happened over in Europe, where we have these European nations, like these members of European Parliament, MEPs, that are standing up and saying, "What is happening in Canada?" We've never experienced that. Like in my generation, I'm 35 years old. In my lifetime, I've never heard Canada talk to like that. That's foreign to me. So I think that what we're trying to do here is put something out that's going to be content rich, informational, but we want to be able to do snippets. We want to do longer. This is kind of went a little bit longer than I think that most of our conversations are going to go, and I think that's great. I want to be able to do some stuff with the market. Over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of research and work in the markets, the stock market, the bond markets, and it implies a lot of what I try to do and fulfills my viewpoint of the world. I think if you can figure out where the money goes, you have a kind of an insight into of the reality of the world. Politicians can lie through their teeth, but they can't lie through their wallet. So if you can figure out where the money's coming and where it's going, where the markets are trending, that sort of thing, it implies a whole lot of opportunities. And I'd like to make a lot of people some money. I think I've made you some money over the years. I've got other
Absolutely.
guys that have worked with us as well. That whether it be in the markets or whether in real estate, that I'm a real estate investor. I actually went and saw 4 houses today. I had my daughter with me. We were doing some open houses here in the area, and I've got a couple $1 million worth of real estate that I own, and want to keep growing that. So that's where I'm at right now. And I think that this is a great jumping off platform. I want to help people. We've got some, philanthropic opportunities that are coming down the pipe for us as well. And if we can blend this and as well with that, and reach a larger audience, I think that's brilliant. The platform, it's going to be a work in progress. We're going to figure out how to use all of these things, and we're going to be able to bring great content on a number of different platforms, whether it be YouTube, whether it be Rumble, whether it be Grinder, whether it be TikTok or YouTube or all these
Yep.
different platforms, Instagram. When we have those platforms with the snippets and the little pieces, I think that we're going to be able to provide content and drive this. This metaverse concept, I think, can either be really great or it can be really detrimental. So for us kind of being the early innovators and adapters, taking this on earlier than a lot of other people, we've got a bit of that head start in the field. But we've got to continue to bring value for everybody, and I think we will. I think we're going to show people how to do things, give some of our knowledge back, whether it be young people, whether it be individuals that are looking at the markets. I'm excited. I think this is going to be fantastic.
I'm pretty excited too. Like, I think we both bring in different things. Like you often have said, I lead by my heart, because I'm
Right.
more into the mental health and autism and helping people in social programs and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas you're more into business and money, and we both have gifts. And you're absolutely
Greed.
right. You're absolutely right. You have been, I think I've been a mentor in some ways in that
Absolutely.
area. And
Yep.
you have been a huge mentor to me. Like over the last 5 years, you have grown my finances hugely because of the me coming to you and asking you questions and learning how to become a landlord and learning how to grow a business and learning how to, like, this was just a concept until you came up with, hey, there's this new Oculus thing. But before that, it was just like, let's try to do a podcast. Like, so I think we bring two different sides of it. Like, I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm at the end of my life. I'm looking for next steps. I may pass on and leave this to you. You're 35.
Today, you might pass out today.
Today, it could happen. I could right now.
anytime.
Yeah,
Yep.
but you're 35.
We'll just push you out onto the lake here.
That's right, right out there.
I'm going to
Throw me
say
in the
this is
boat.
the Mediterranean. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, but I don't know. It's
Yeah.
hard to say. I don't travel a lot, so. But I think
We can now.
we can now. Yeah, we can go anywhere and do this. It's lovely.
Right.
But I think that we may have got sidetracked a little bit, which we often do, and probably you'll notice that over the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think we got sidetracked a bit. Like, Trudeau was an important topic that we were both talking about it today off camera, and we thought, you know what, this is something that people want to hear about, that people want to learn about, and that's kind of what Bartender Profits is all about. We want to get talking about the conversations that people don't want to talk about, but also the conversations that are important to their life, the
Right.
conversations that are going to promote change and make a difference.
Right.
So I think what we got here is a pretty good thing, and I'm really glad we're partnering up on this. This is
Absolutely, pal. No, I think it'll be great, and the feedback we've had already is pretty good. So, I guess we'll see. I guess we'll leave it up to everyone else and go from there. Is there anything like, as far as me for today? I'm pretty excited the way this all went.
Folks, thanks again for joining us at Soaring Profits. Patrick, James here. We'd like you to please like, subscribe, share, and
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube, which is probably where you're watching it right now. We'd love to have you there. And comment. Let's start a dinner table conversation right on our channel.
thanks again, folks. Appreciate it.